Hello and welcome to a virtual book talk. My name is Nick Howell, and today the book we'll be looking at is The New Art and Science of Teaching by Robert J. Marzano. And this book is fantastic if you're looking to get yourself into teaching or you're within your first few years of teaching because this book provides a lot of information on strategies and tips on how to maintain classroom management, chunking and chewing, assessments, as well as how to build relationships amongst your students. This has been great for me because I myself am a new teacher. I'm entering my second year of teaching at the high school level, teaching PE and health, and I've been seeing a lot of what's been a lot of feedback that's been presented to me by my observers as well as my administration from this book. I've been able to connect a lot of it to it. Now, to keep this in mind, you want to monitor what kind of goals you want to set for yourself as a teacher, as well as goals that your school or even your district have set up as well, because those goals can influence what tips may be more valuable to you in here. And to go into one of those first tips is actually processing content, because one thing that has been stressed to me a lot has been this idea called the GUR model, which is known as the gradual release of responsibility from teacher to students. And in this model, you want to, you know, slowly give the lesson over to the students. Let them show you what they're learning through their perspective, and as a teacher, you kind of correct them where you're seeing mistakes at. Um, and what you would do is you would teach a part of the lesson, and then you would pause and let the students, chew that chunk of information. And what Robert says in here under element 7 on page 49, during pauses between chunks in the new content the teacher is presenting, students should be engaged in activities that help them analyze and process new information in ways that facilitates their understanding. And students are going to be different. There's going to be a wider range of understandings, a lot of differentiation among students in how they learn. Some students may pick it up pretty simply. Other students may get creative in how they process the information. And it's important to allow that because if the students at the end of the day are learning the information and they're using different strategies, that's great because they're showing their fellow classmates different ways to learn new information. And so for us as teachers, these processes must be well thought out and structured. If students simply share their thoughts about the chunk of the content they just experienced, they may not interact in ways that is rigorous enough to augment their learning. So rather than giving a full-blown lecture, you want to maybe break it up into little pieces and then have like a little activity to demonstrate their learning in a variety of ways. Maybe break up the stations and maybe break up the tables into little stations that they rotate in and see how they all process the information differently. But one of the biggest things that a new teacher may encounter is what's known as uh, classroom management, monitoring the engagement of the classes. Because overall, you want to monitor that students are engaging, and Robert does a really good job by going over this in detail in element 23 on page 101. It's the most basic set of strategies that relates to engagement simply involve a teacher being aware of and reacting when students are disengaged. If a teacher does not have this awareness and execute appropriate strategies, they will probably not keep students engaged at any level. And it's important to do that because if a student's not engaged, they're not learning, and their formative and summative scores are going to reflect that. And so it's important to keep every class engaged or every student engaged um, as much as possible. I understand this may be difficult for new teachers because sometimes you may get a class that's extremely big, like 35 plus. I know this firsthand because I've had classes in that range, and as a new teacher, it can be very, very overwhelming. But work with your I recommend that you work with your teachers in your fellow department in your same department to build strategies on how to um, make to keep those students engaged with those large numbers. It will take a little bit of practice. It may take, maybe a quarter, maybe a semester, or maybe you take something that you learn from one school year and apply it to the next. Um, while it's our job as teachers to provide education to the students, we're also learning as well. We're learning how to be more effective teachers. And there on page 101, use self-reported student engagement data. You can monitor overall class engagement, re-engage individual students, or boosting overall class energy levels. There are so many strategies that you can implement and change amongst your students or your class, I should say, to keep them engaged for that day, whether you have them for an hour or 7 hours throughout the day. But no matter what strategies you may have, you may build some of your own. We've all been students. Sometimes maybe we use something that a teacher used for us. On page 104, a strategy to keep students engaged, particularly when they're falling asleep, is using physical movement. These strategies have direct connection to students' energy levels. This makes sense intuitively. Movement is obviously related to increased energy. It also makes sense psychologically. Movement increases blood flow to the brain, which stimulates engagement. And these strategies, for these elements, appear in the tables like stand up and stretch. Me personally, I I tell my students if they're falling asleep, they're free to stand up and stretch, walk around a little bit, get the blood flowing. While a lot of them don't do that, they know that option is available to them. Another great option I see right below that is vote with your feet. Have you can post signs in specific parts of the room that identify responses to true or false or multiple choice questions or reactions to a questions. Students move to a location that has the sign with the answers to it. Corner activities, stand and be counted. There are many different ways you can, you know, create these strategies by involving movement and reduce student disengagement by letting them walk around your classroom. You don't have to tape them, metaphorically speaking, to their chairs during the lesson. Let them get up a little bit, get the blood flowing. It can help them so much. And when I was a student, I actually took advantage of this quite often because I was known to fall asleep from time to time in my classes. With that, another thing in there that I find really great is building relationships with students. This is probably one of the biggest things that I focus on is building relationships. I love greeting students at the classroom door. This is something that a lot of law schools want teachers to do. One thing that my students have loved very very much at the beginning of every class, whether it's a PE class um, or my health class, I want to meet my students at the door with a fist bump. I actually borrowed this not from an actual teacher, but a substitute teacher, and she would greet us at the door with a smile and her fist ready to give us a good old fist bump, and it felt really good. Kid, my kids love the fist bumps. They know it's a great way to start the day, and I'll have various good welcoming messages based on the day, based on the time of day, and the kids get a good laugh out of it. It's a great way to start the day off on the correct foot. Greeting students by their names outside of school, um, or giving students special responsibilities or leadership roles in the classrooms. I've done this quite a bit with my TAs because TAs are generally trusted students. And so you can trust them with maybe holding the door open or doing a delivery for you to the front office. You have papers to give up or turn in, excuse me. These these type of strategies build very good relationships with students. And if you manage to build those relationships, students will remember you. They will come up to you with a good feeling, with a smile on your face or on their face, and give you a big old hello every time you see them the next school year. Is a very rewarding feeling to build strong relationships with your students in the classroom because it will go a long way to their development into adulthood. And those are three key features right there in this book talk. This was very eye-opening, and I think it's definitely reinforced a lot of what I believed to be a good teacher here. And I think there are plenty of other chapters and elements in here in which you, the new teacher, can draw upon or reinforce with your own strategies based on your goals as a teacher or feedback that you've earned as a teacher. Take upon some of these, and maybe you might learn, and maybe you might, become more effective as a teacher in the following days or even the following years. Practice makes perfect, and that's what a teacher is always doing is practicing to be as close to the perfect teacher as they believe for their students. If you have any feedback on this book or your strategies of being a teacher, feel free to drop it in the comments down below. Please leave a like. You can find this book on Amazon or your local bookstore and give it a read sometime. Have a great rest of your day, guys. All right, bye bye.